Hey everyone, welcome back to another Zwift racing video, and this is going to be a kind of Zwift racing related video, and I'm going to be discussing a pretty big topic. So the big topic of today is going to be power-ups, and you can see that you could probably guess by now what the power-up that I'm going to be talking about is, and that is the burrito power-up. The burrito power-up was added pretty recently, and I believe it was in-game before, but Zwift removed it for a bit, and then they brought it back, making some changes to it to make it a bit better. And this power-up, I personally really dislike it, but only because everyone uses it in the wrong way, and the way they use it kind of just ruins the race for everyone else who is trying to have a good strategic race, because they're just not using it strategically, and it basically just blows up the entire race. So earlier on in the race, there is no footage of it, but I was riding around and there were around 30 riders. It was a pretty big lead group, and then someone just started using their burrito power up in the middle of the group, meaning the group basically split into two pieces, and that would be the riders who were caught in front of the burrito and the riders who were caught in the back. And what the burrito does, in case you do not know, is that it removes the draft for all the riders around you within, I believe, 5 to 10 meters, and that will do that. You would do that for 15 seconds, and it also makes it so that you cannot draft either. So it really does not benefit you unless you are doing an all-out breakaway. And that is not how most of the riders were using it, which was the pretty annoying thing about this. You can see that I knew that the burrito power-up would not help me, and right here you can see that I do surge because I see riders start to use the burrito power-up, and that's because I am a lighter rider, so I kind of rely on the draft. So whenever I see the burrito power-up deployed, I immediately surge to try to stick with the front of the group so that I can avoid being dropped. But as soon as someone deploys a burrito power-up, the group just instantly separates because of the loss of the draft. But earlier you saw that I immediately just trashed the burrito power-up because I knew that I could get a better power-up at the arch, and I actually did, and it was the feather power-up. I was willing to risk it because the burrito power-up, in my opinion, is the worst power-up on Zwift unless it is used perfectly. And I've seen riders use it really well, but I've also seen tons of riders just spamming it as soon as they get it, not knowing what it actually does. And this is one of the annoying things about Zwift racing, because Zwift does not, nowhere does it really say what each power-up does, and when you start Zwift racing, there's something that kind of shows up as like a tutorial saying this is how you use the power-up, this is what it does. And I often hear in big group rides or big races, riders asking, what does this power-up do? Because they've never seen it before, especially these special event power-ups that you don't see normally, like the burrito power-up. It's only enabled on certain events, so that really limits the exposure of the power-up, and it basically makes it so that riders don't really know what the power-up does. And I have linked a really good resource below for those of the riders who don't really know what the power-ups are and how to properly use it, because I think that properly using your power-ups is one of the biggest things in Zwift racing, and it'll immediately increase your chances of winning if you use your power-up right. However, it is not only the burrito power-up that gets used in the wrong way. Tons of other power-ups get spammed just whenever, and that really only harms the other riders unless it actually is the burrito power-up, because the burrito power-up is the only power-up that actually affects the riders around you. The rest of them don't really affect other riders, such as the featherweight boost. It does not make a difference if someone just spams it in the middle of nowhere. That actually really helps you because you know that you have a higher shot at winning the race. But if it's the burrito power-up, that could really just destroy the group, and the riders who are not really paying attention that much, they will just go flying right off the back because they don't realize that they need to be pushing extra power in order to stay with the group when that power-up is being used. So something that I think Zwift should really be doing in order to help riders learn about how to use their power-ups is, in the event description, talk about power-ups and talk about when these power-ups will be useful in the race and when they should be used, because quite a few riders do read the event description, and while there are riders who don't, it will certainly help to kind of have that information spread out into the wild. And another thing that Zwift could do is that once riders join events and head into the pens, there could be an automatic message that stays at the top and it's highlighted for all the riders. That basically talks about Zwift racing in general, with just a brief overview including information about power-ups, and then a link to a good resource such as the Zwift Insider article. And another thing that they could do is for beginner Zwifters, Zwift could definitely have a little pointer, just like many video games, where when you're new to a video game, it'll basically give you an orientation on how to use the game, and that would be really helpful for riders who are in their first race, and it'll basically just talk about what each power-up does and how it should be used. So another reason why knowing what the power-ups do is really important to Zwift is because if riders don't know what the power-up does, and this power-up is the burrito power-up, it's going to affect everyone negatively. This is because when riders don't know what to expect, all of a sudden they see some rider deploy a burrito and their rider goes into the drops, and they don't actually realize that they're out of the draft, and that just leads them to cause a big split and they end up getting dropped. So really knowing what each power-up does is really important, especially when it comes down to the burrito power-up, because the burrito power-up is pretty much the only power-up that affects the other riders in a negative way. So as I stated earlier, when I was racing in this race and I saw riders deploy the burrito power-up, I immediately knew that I needed to pay really good attention to what was happening in the group to see whether I needed to surge or not. But riders who don't actually know what the power-up does won't know to do that, and they'll just drop right off the back if they are not paying attention. And even if they are paying attention, the draft is eliminated, the front group is pretty much going to be established, there'll be a gap, and that gap is going to be extremely hard to control and bring back once the group is solidified and there is a good draft going once the burrito power-up ends. So into more of a commentary section of this video, you can see that we are at the 30-minute mark. There are 2.3 miles left, so still around 5 minutes remaining in the race, and you can see based off my power graph, I'm going extremely easy, and I really like races like this because it gives me time to just like really prepare and think about what I want to do. And normally I would try and attack because there is such a small group and the speed is so low, but I was recovering from COVID, so I was not at my best fitness, so I didn't want to push it too hard, but I was desperate to race. You can see that I saw that rider T. Brown from Wahoo Lake Cole launched an attack, and I immediately knew that attack would be deadly, so I actually started sprinting here to really just make sure I closed down that gap, because if that gap were to grow and that rider had burrito power up, that would be the end of the race for everyone, because this rider, as you can see, still pushing 6 watts per kilo, is definitely a very strong rider, and look at the Zwift power ranks, he is very strong and could definitely finish off the race with a solo breakaway. You can see now 1.8 miles left. That rider just used their leaf power up or featherweight power up, which is better for me because I know that I still have mine, so I have a better chance at taking the win than that rider. And you can see that you're going to see the rider launch another attack, which is going to destroy the group once again, but I saw it coming and I was able to hop on his wheel as soon as he started his attack. You can see that I was watching him very closely in this situation, and it was very suspicious when he started to drift towards the back, because a common method for creating a good breakaway is by dropping to the back and then slingshotting yourself through the group. So you can see that I was watching him do that, and I just immediately follow and bring my power up so that I can catch that rider. I was doing around 8 watts per kilo to close the gap, and it wasn't that big of a gap yet because I kind of subdued the attack before it got too big, and you can see that everyone is chasing at this point. The biggest gap between the leader and the rest of the riders is 1 second, so there really was no gap made because riders were all expecting this, and since it's such a small group, everyone will chase and there won't be a big string of riders. So now still holding a steady pace through these rollers with the occasional attack, and my heart rate's already up to 205, which is not a good sign because I was breathing pretty hard and I wasn't feeling that great for a finishing sprint, and my legs are starting to get fatigued, nothing like they were earlier because these two attacks really just destroyed my legs, and it kind of drained most of the energy that I had been saving up throughout the race. And you can see once again T. Brown is on the back of the group dangling, and I am ready to pounce as soon as that rider attacks because I know that it is coming. You can see that still going through these S's and really curvy here, and it's a really technical section, so if you lose the group here, you're pretty much gone for the rest of the race. It's extremely hard because of the pack speeds, and you can see that riders start to attack here, and this time it is not Brown from Wahoo Lake Cole, it is actually another rider, and everyone starts to chase because everyone knows that this is an important moment of the race. Less than a mile left, and right after we hit this corner, we're going to hit a descent, which means that bringing back the attack is going to be a bit easier, but everyone still wants to make sure that the attack does not get away. Coming into the descent, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay towards the front of the group, and you can see that rider used their ghost power up, really strategic choice, and they just go right off the front. They've got a big gap, and I just typed wow into the chat because I'm amazed by how well that was executed. We kind of just gave up at this point, and we knew that this rider was gone. I'm going to come back to this part and talk about what I wanted to do in the finish, because there is not quite enough time at regular speed, and I want to play this through before showing you all what I thought what would be the best course of action going into this descent. So you can see that I didn't quite stay with the front of the group, and I got a bit separated, and this is where the gap that kind of ended the race for me started. Right here you can see that there is a pretty solid gap, maybe around 10 feet or so, or 10 bike lengths, and I just start my sprint immediately because I know that I need to close that gap and I need to make up some ground. The rider deploys their burrito power up right when I get back into their draft, so it's no help for me, and the riders from behind are coming in really quickly, so I really just need to hold this power up, but my legs just like completely blew up, and I ended up just gliding to the finish. Still, I was able to hold off the rider in 6th place, and I settled for 5th. So coming back to the finish, my plan was to stay towards the front of the group because I've been dropped so many times on this descent, and it basically just ruined my sprint. I'm always caught towards the back here because I am a lead rider, and everyone is pushing big watts. So what I really should have done differently is really made sure that I was really close to the front, even if that meant putting in an even harder effort at that start of the descent rather than just kind of chilling. And then I would have been towards the front, and I'd be able to just hang on to those wheels and really just like glide to the finish in around 3rd or 4th. Overall, it was a short, fun race, and I really enjoyed it. And the key takeaway from this video is that power-ups are generally a good thing, but they could be even better if Zwift really used their resources to inform riders about what the power-ups do so that they don't end up coming to harm riders in an unintentional way, I guess. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and see you all next time. Ride on.